Hey everyone, tonight we're diving into something that'll make you grateful for modern medicine. We're exploring the weird, wild, and absolutely terrifying world of medieval medical treatments. Before you get too comfortable, hit that like button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to share your location because after tonight's journey, you'll never complain about waiting at the doctor's office again. So dim the lights, maybe grab some tea, and prepare yourself for a trip back to a time when medicine was basically organized torture with a side of prayer. You think WebMD gives you scary diagnoses? Wait until you hear what medieval doctors prescribed for a simple headache. Congratulations, you've just gotten sick in the year 1400. The bad news? You're about to discover that the cure might be worse than the disease. The good news? Well, there isn't any good news. Welcome to medieval medicine, where every treatment is an adventure and survival is optional. Number 1. Bloodletting with leeches. Picture this, you wake up feeling tired and weak. Maybe you have a headache or your stomach hurts. Nothing too serious, right? Wrong. In medieval times, you're about to become best friends with some very hungry leeches. The medieval doctor arrives at your bedside, carrying a wooden box that's making strange squishing sounds. He opens it with the confidence of someone who definitely knows what he's doing, even though he absolutely doesn't. Inside are dozens of black, slimy leeches, writhing around like tiny vampires waiting for dinner. Yes, the doctor says, nodding wisely at your pale face. Too much bad blood. We must drain it immediately. See, medieval doctors believed that all sickness came from having too much bad blood in your body. They thought your blood could go rotten like milk left in the sun. Their solution was simple: remove the bad blood until you felt better. Or until you passed out. Whichever came first. The doctor places the leeches on your arms, legs, and neck. They latch on with tiny teeth and start sucking. You can actually feel your blood leaving your body, one slurp at a time. The leeches grow fatter and fatter, like little blood balloons, while you grow paler and weaker. But wait, there's more. If leeches aren't available, the doctor might use a different approach. He pulls out a rusty blade and makes cuts on your skin, letting the blood pour into a bowl. He'll keep cutting until you've lost what he considers enough bad blood to cure you. The problem? Medieval doctors had no idea how much blood a person could safely lose. Some patients were drained until they fainted. Others were bled so much they went into shock. Many died not from their original illness, but from losing too much blood. You lie there, feeling dizzy and cold, watching your life force drip into a wooden bucket. The doctor nods approvingly. Excellent. The bad blood is leaving your body. You should feel much better soon. Of course, you feel worse. Much worse. But the doctor explains this is normal. The remaining good blood is now working harder to heal you, he says. If you're still sick tomorrow, we'll bleed you again. And they did. Some patients were bled every day for weeks. They became so weak they couldn't get out of bed. But the doctors saw this as progress. After all, if you're too weak to complain about being sick, then clearly the treatment is working. The truly horrifying part? This wasn't some rare, desperate treatment. Bloodletting was the most common medical procedure in medieval Europe. Rich or poor, young or old, everyone got bled. It was like the medieval version of taking aspirin, except aspirin doesn't nearly kill you. So next time you're at the doctor and they want to take a small vial of blood for testing, remember medieval patients who had pints drained from their bodies by creatures that looked like tiny monsters. And be grateful that modern medicine figured out that keeping your blood inside your body is generally a good idea. Number 2. Urine as medicine. Think bloodletting sounds bad? Hold that thought, because we're about to talk about medieval medicine's favorite multi-purpose remedy, urine. Yes, pee. Your own pee. Other people's pee. Animal pee. In medieval times, urine wasn't just waste. It was liquid gold. You're lying in your medieval bed, weak from yesterday's bloodletting, when the doctor returns with a new treatment plan. He's carrying a ceramic jug filled with yellow liquid that's definitely not apple juice. Drink this, he commands, holding the jug toward your face. The smell hits you first. Sharp, bitter, unmistakably the scent of someone's morning bathroom visit. Your stomach lurches, but the doctor insists. Urine is nature's perfect medicine, he explains seriously. It cleanses the body from within, removing all toxins and evil humors. Medieval doctors believed urine was a miracle cure because it came from inside the body, which meant it understood the body's problems. They thought drinking your own pee would help your body recognize and fight off illness. It was like medieval recycling, but infinitely more disgusting. The doctor forces the jug to your lips. The taste is as bad as you'd imagine. Salty, bitter, warm if it's fresh, cold, and somehow even worse if it's been sitting around. You gag, but medieval doctors don't accept this taste horrible as a valid medical complaint. But drinking urine is just the beginning. Got a cut or wound? The doctor soaks a rag in pee and presses it against your injury. Urine will clean the wound better than water, he claims confidently. What he doesn't know is that urine actually contains bacteria that can make infections worse. Have a skin condition? Time for a urine bath. Medieval people would soak in tubs filled with their own waste, believing it would cure rashes, sores, and other skin problems. Imagine sitting in a bathtub full of pee, thinking this is helping your health. Some medieval remedies call for specific types of urine. The pee of young, healthy people was considered more powerful than that of sick or elderly people. Virgin's urine was thought to be especially pure. There were actually urine dealers who would sell different types of pee for different medical conditions. And it gets weirder. Medieval doctors would diagnose illnesses by examining, smelling, and yes, tasting their patient's urine. They believed they could tell what was wrong with you by the color, smell, and flavor of your pee. Imagine going to the doctor and watching him take a sip of your urine like he's tasting wine. Yes, the doctor might say, smacking his lips thoughtfully. Too much yellow bile. We'll need to treat this with aged horse urine, applied directly to the forehead. The most horrifying part? Some of these urine treatments were used for serious conditions. Heart problems. Drink cow urine. Lung disease. Inhale the steam from boiling pee. Broken bones. Soak them in human urine mixed with herbs. Children weren't spared either. Sick babies were often given diluted urine to drink or had their skin rubbed with pea-soaked cloths. Parents thought they were helping their children get better, but they were actually exposing them to bacteria and infections. The practice was so common that medieval households kept special pots for collecting and storing urine for medical use. Families would save their pee like we save leftovers, except leftovers don't smell like a public bathroom and aren't used to treat pneumonia. So the next time you complain about the taste of cough syrup, remember medieval patients who had to drink cups of fermented urine while being told it was good for them. Modern medicine may not be perfect, but at least your doctor isn't trying to cure your headache with someone else's bathroom waste. Number 3. Dead mice for toothaches. Medieval dental care was basically medieval torture with extra steps. And when it came to treating toothaches, medieval doctors had a solution that would make you want to keep your mouth shut forever. Dead mice. You're sitting in your medieval hovel, clutching your jaw because one of your rotting teeth is throbbing with pain. There's no dentist, no painkillers, no hope of relief. Just you, your agony, and whatever insane remedy the local healer decides to try. The healer arrives carrying a small sack that's making suspicious rustling sounds. He reaches inside and pulls out a dead mouse. Not a clean, laboratory mouse. A regular house mouse that probably died from eating something toxic in someone's kitchen. This will cure your toothache immediately, he announces, holding the tiny corpse up to the light like it's a precious jewel. Here's how the treatment works. The healer takes the dead mouse and presses it directly against your aching tooth. Sometimes he'll tie it to your gum with a string. Other times, he'll stuff the entire mouse into your mouth and tell you to bite down on it. The logic, according to medieval medicine, was that mice were naturally good at gnawing through things. Therefore, a dead mouse would gnaw away the pain from your tooth. It made perfect sense to people who thought illness was caused by evil spirits and bad air. But wait, it gets worse. Some healers insisted the mouse had to be prepared in specific ways. It might need to be split in half, with a bloody inside pressed against your tooth. Or it could be burned to ash first, then mixed with wine and rubbed on your gums. You sit there with a dead rodent hanging from your mouth, try not to think about what that mouse ate before it died, or where it lived, or how many diseases it might be carrying. The taste is indescribable. Imagine licking the inside of a garbage can mixed with the smell of something that's been dead for days. Medieval people believed that the mouse needed to be fresh for the treatment to work. This meant using mice that had died recently, often within hours. Healers would keep dead mice in jars, like a macabre pharmacy, waiting for the next toothache patient. Some remedies called for live mice to be killed specifically for the treatment. The healer would catch a mouse, kill it quickly, and immediately apply it to your tooth while it was still warm. They thought the life force leaving the mouse would somehow transfer healing power to your pain. Children with toothaches got the same treatment. Imagine being a scared kid with a sore tooth, and an adult ties a dead mouse to your face and tells you it's medicine. No wonder medieval children were terrified of getting sick. The mouse treatment could last for hours or even days. You'd walk around your village with a rotting rodent attached to your head, trying to eat and sleep normally. Other people would nod approvingly when they saw your mouse-adorned face, because everyone knew this was proper medical treatment. Of course, the dead mouse didn't cure anything. Instead, it probably introduced bacteria, infection, and disease directly into your mouth. The decaying mouse flesh would rot against your tooth and gum, making the original problem much worse. Many patients developed serious infections that spread to their jaw, face, and even their brain. But medieval healers had an explanation for when the mouse treatment didn't work. You must have used the wrong type of mouse. Maybe you needed a field mouse instead of a house mouse. Or perhaps the mouse wasn't dead long enough or too dead. There's always a reason why the treatment failed. And it was never because pressing dead animals against your teeth is a terrible idea. Some regions had variations on the mouse cure. Dead rats for bigger toothaches. Dead shrews for sensitive teeth. Dead moles for wisdom tooth pain. It was like a medieval pest control catalog, except instead of getting rid of rodents, you were putting them in your mouth. So the next time you're at the dentist complaining about the sound of the drill or the taste of fluoride, remember medieval people who thought the best cure for dental pain was a rotting mouse corpse. Modern dental care might not be fun, but at least your dentist isn't trying to solve your problems with dead vermin. Number 4, dung is healing paste. Medieval medicine had a special relationship with poop. Not the kind of relationship you'd want, but the kind where doctors genuinely believe that animal feces was nature's perfect healing ointment. Got a cut? Smear some dung on it. Open wound? Pack it with manure. Broken skin? Fresh animal droppings will fix you right up. You just cut your hand on a rusty farming tool. In modern times, you'd clean the wound, apply antiseptic, and bandage it properly. But this is medieval Europe, where medical knowledge comes from books written by people who thought the heart had 3 chambers and women had fewer teeth than men. The local healer examines your bleeding hand with the confidence of someone who definitely knows what they're doing, even though they absolutely don't. Ah, deep cut, he observes. This requires immediate treatment with healing paste. He walks to the nearest farm animal, waits for it to defecate, then scoops up the fresh, steaming pile of dung with his bare hands. The smell hits you immediately, a mixture of digested grass, stomach acid, and something that makes your eyes water. Fresh horse dung is best for cuts, he explains, kneading the warm excrement between his fingers like he's preparing bread dough. But cow manure works well too. Pig dung is excellent for infected wounds. Medieval doctors believed that animal dung was sterile because it came from inside a healthy animal. They thought the digestive process somehow purified the waste, making it safe and healing for human wounds. What they didn't know was that animal feces is crawling with bacteria, parasites, and infections waiting to jump into any open cut. The healer spreads the thick brown paste directly onto your bleeding hand. The sensation is warm, squishy, and absolutely revolting. Chunks of undigested grass and seeds press into your wound, while the liquid parts seep into your cut and under your fingernails. This will prevent infection and speed healing, he claims, wrapping your dung-covered hand with a dirty cloth. The natural healing properties in the dung will draw out poisons and evil humors. But the treatment doesn't stop there. Medieval healers had specific dung recipes for different types of injuries. Dog feces mixed with honey for deep cuts. Chicken droppings blended with wine for puncture wounds. Human waste combined with herbs for burns. Some healers aged their dung like fine wine. They'd collect animal droppings in ceramic pots and let them ferment for weeks or months, believing that older, more rotten manure had stronger healing properties. Imagine opening a jar that's been filled with aging poop for half a year and thinking, yes, this is exactly what my patient needs. The smell of these dung remedies was legendary. Medieval medical texts actually describe the proper scent of healing manure, as if there's such a thing as good-smelling poop medicine. Healers would sniff their dung supplies like sommeliers testing wine, nodding approvingly at particularly pungent batches. Children weren't exempt from dung treatments. Babies with diaper rash got it worse when their parents applied healing animal waste to their already irritated skin. Kids with scrapes and cuts had manure packed into their wounds, often making minor injuries into life-threatening infections. The most horrifying part was how long these treatments lasted. You would wear the dung paste for days or even weeks, letting it dry and harden on your wound. As it dried, it would crack and pull at your healing skin, often reopening cuts that were trying to close naturally. When infections inevitably developed from the dung treatment, medieval healers had an explanation. You obviously needed more dung, or a different type of dung, or dung that had been blessed by a priest. The idea that smearing animal waste into open wounds might cause problems never occurred to them. Some dung remedies were combined with other medieval medical horrors. Healers might mix fresh manure with ground-up bones, herbs, and urine to create super-powered healing paste that contained every possible source of infection in one convenient package. Medieval soldiers often had their battle wounds treated with horse dung, since that was what was available on battlefields. Many warriors who survived the actual fighting died later from infections caused by their medical treatment. So next time you get a small cut and reach for antibiotic ointment, remember medieval people who thought the best medicine for open wounds was fresh animal poop. Modern first aid might seem boring, but at least your bandages don't smell like a barnyard and actually help instead of causing life-threatening infections. Number 5. Powdered bones and skulls. Medieval medicine had a thing for dead people. Not just any dead people, but specifically their bones, ground up into powder and served as medicine. If you thought drinking urine was bad, wait until you hear about medieval doctors who believed that consuming human remains was the ultimate cure for everything from headaches to epilepsy. You're lying in your medieval bed, suffering from terrible headaches that feel like someone's hammering nails into your skull. The pain is constant, throbbing, and there's no relief in sight. The local physician arrives with what he promises is the most powerful medicine available, powdered human skull. He opens a leather pouch and pours out a fine grayish-white powder onto a wooden spoon. This isn't just any powder. It's the ground-up skull bone of someone who died recently, crushed into dust by mortar and pestle until it resembles flour. Skull powder from a young, healthy person is the finest treatment for head pain, the doctor explains confidently. Since the skull protected their brain in life, it will protect yours in medicine. Medieval doctors believed in something called sympathetic magic. They thought that body parts retained the properties they had in life, even after death. The skull had protected someone's brain, so consuming skull powder would protect your brain. A leg bone had supported someone's weight, so leg bone powder would strengthen your bones. The doctor mixes the skull powder with wine or water, creating a gritty, chalky drink that tastes like liquid chalk mixed with the smell of old churches. You're forced to swallow this human dust while trying not to think about whose head it came from. But skull powder is just the beginning. Medieval apothecaries sold entire catalogs of human bone medicines. Finger bone powder for joint pain. Rib bone dust for chest problems. Spine powder for backaches. It was like a macabre grocery store where every item was made from dead people. The most expensive human bone medicine was called mumia or mummy powder. This was made from actual Egyptian mummies that were imported to Europe, ground up, and sold as premium medicine. Wealthy people paid enormous sums for genuine mummy dust, believing it was more powerful than regular corpse powder. Grave robbers made fortunes digging up fresh corpses to sell to bone powder manufacturers. They'd break into cemeteries at night, steal recently buried bodies, and deliver them to medical suppliers who would grind them up for medicine. It was a thriving business that made death profitable. The bone grinding process was elaborate and disgusting. Bodies would be boiled to remove flesh. Then the bones were cleaned, dried, and crushed in large mortars. The resulting powder was sifted through fine screens to remove chunks, creating a smooth dust that could be mixed into drinks or capsules. Some healers insisted that bones from specific types of people were more powerful. Bones from young, healthy individuals were considered premium medicine. Skull powder from someone who had died violently was thought to be especially potent for treating epilepsy or seizures. Children with learning difficulties were given brain powder made from the skulls of scholars or intelligent people. Parents genuinely believed that feeding their children ground-up smart person brains would make their kids smarter. The irony is that anyone smart enough to be considered a scholar would have known this was insane. Medieval apothecaries had detailed catalogs listing different bone powders and their supposed uses. Jawbone powder for tooth problems. Hand bone dust for arthritis. Heart bone powder. Yes, they thought the heart had bones for heart conditions. Every conceivable human ailment had a corresponding human bone remedy. The bone powder trade became so popular that it created shortages. When genuine human bones became scarce and expensive, unscrupulous dealers started mixing in animal bones or even just regular chalk and dust. Customers were paying premium prices for fake human remains without knowing it. Some regions developed reputations for producing the finest bone powders. Italian mummy dust was considered superior to local corpse powder. Bones from holy people or martyrs commanded the highest prices because everyone knew that saintly bones had extra healing power. The most horrifying part was how casually this was accepted. Families would discuss over dinner whether grandmother's arthritis required finger bone powder or full hand bone dust. Parents would measure out spoonfuls of skull powder for their children's breakfast like we measure vitamins. Medieval medical texts gave detailed instructions for preparing bone powder, including how to select the best corpses, proper grinding techniques, and storage methods. These books were written by learned physicians who genuinely believed they were practicing advanced medicine. So the next time you take a headache pill and complain about the taste, remember medieval people who treated their pain by eating powdered dead people. Modern medicine might have side effects, but at least your medication isn't made from someone else's skeleton. Number 6. Drinking molten metals. Medieval alchemists and physicians had a theory. Since precious metals like gold and silver were pure and eternal, consuming them would make humans pure and eternal too. This led to one of medieval medicine's most lethal treatments, drinking molten metals. Not surprisingly, this cure often killed patients faster than their original illness. You're a wealthy medieval noble, suffering from what you believe is premature aging. Your hair is turning gray, your joints ache, and you feel tired all the time. You're probably just experiencing normal middle age, but medieval medicine doesn't understand aging as a natural process. The royal physician arrives with an expensive and exclusive treatment, liquid gold. He's brought a small furnace, a crucible, and actual gold coins that he's going to melt down and serve to you as medicine. Gold is the most perfect metal, he explains while heating the furnace. It never rusts, never tarnishes, never decays. By consuming liquid gold, your body will take on these same properties. You will become immune to aging and disease. The logic seems reasonable if you don't understand basic chemistry or human biology. Gold is indeed stable and doesn't corrode. But that's exactly why it's useless as medicine. Gold doesn't interact with your body in any beneficial way. It just passes through your system unchanged, assuming it doesn't kill you first. The physician melts your gold coins in the crucible until they become glowing, liquid metal. The temperature required to melt gold is over 1,900 degrees Fahrenheit. This is hot enough to instantly destroy your mouth, throat, and internal organs. Drink quickly while it's still pure, he instructs, holding a small cup filled with molten gold. The moment the liquid metal touches your lips, you experience agony beyond description. The molten gold burns through your mouth, tongue, and throat like acid. Your esophagus is seared as the metal travels toward your stomach. The pain is so intense that you probably pass out immediately. If the initial burns don't kill you, the gold solidifies as it cools inside your body, creating solid metal chunks in your digestive system. These metal pieces tear through your stomach lining and intestines as your body desperately tries to process them. But gold wasn't the only metal medieval physicians prescribed. Mercury was another popular choice, especially for treating syphilis and other diseases. Mercury is liquid at room temperature, so it didn't need to be heated. Patients would drink it directly, not knowing that mercury is one of the most toxic substances on Earth. Mercury poisoning causes tremors, memory loss, kidney failure, and death. But medieval doctors interpreted these symptoms as signs that the mercury was working to purge the disease from the body. When patients developed shaking hands from mercury poisoning, physicians saw this as evidence that evil humors were being expelled. Lead was another metal medicine. Medieval healers would melt lead and mix it with wine or water, creating a sweet-tasting drink that was actually a deadly poison. Lead poisoning causes brain damage, seizures, and organ failure, but medieval physicians thought these symptoms meant the treatment was effective. Some alchemists created complex metal cocktails, mixing gold, silver, mercury, and lead into superpowered elixirs that were guaranteed to cure anything. These mixtures were so toxic that they could kill a healthy person within hours, but they were marketed as the ultimate medicine for wealthy customers who could afford precious metals. The most famous metal medicine was called aurum potable, or drinkable gold. This was a liquid preparation that supposedly contained dissolved gold, though it was usually just gold particles mixed with alcohol or acid. Even this diluted version was dangerous, but it was slightly less likely to kill you immediately than actual molten metal. Medieval physicians had elaborate theories about why different metals worked for different conditions. Gold for aging, silver for infection, mercury for skin problems, lead for pain. They created detailed charts matching metals to illnesses, as if there was scientific logic behind drinking liquid poison. Children of wealthy families weren't spared from metal treatments. Parents would pay enormous sums to have their sick children treated with precious metal medicines, believing they were providing the best possible care. Many of these children died from metal poisoning, rather than their original illness. The metal medicine trade was incredibly profitable. A small cup of liquid gold could cost more than a peasant's annual income. Alchemists and physicians became wealthy selling molten metal to desperate patients who equated expensive with effective. Some customers became addicted to metal medicines, believing they needed regular doses to maintain their health. They would drink small amounts of mercury or lead regularly, slowly poisoning themselves while thinking they were preventing disease. The most ironic part was that wealthy people who could afford the best medical care often died from treatments that poor people couldn't access. Peasants who couldn't afford liquid gold might survive their illnesses, while rich nobles died from drinking molten precious metals. So the next time you complain about the side effects of modern medicine, remember medieval patients who thought the cure for aging was drinking molten gold. Modern pharmaceuticals might have warnings and side effects, but at least your doctor isn't trying to treat your headache with liquid mercury. Number 7. Spider bread. Medieval bakers had a special recipe that would make modern health inspectors faint. Bread mixed with crushed spiders. This wasn't an accident or contamination. Medieval physicians deliberately prescribed spider-infused bread as medicine for fever, stomach pain, and various other ailments. The idea was that spiders, being natural predators, would hunt down and destroy illness inside your body. You're lying in your medieval bed, burning with fever and clutching your stomach in pain. Your family is desperate to help you feel better, so they visit the local healer who prescribes his most effective remedy, fresh bread baked with live spiders. The baker receives the prescription and nods knowingly. He's made spider bread before. It's a common request, especially during plague seasons when people are willing to try anything to avoid getting sick. First, he catches fresh spiders from around his bakery. House spiders, web spiders, whatever he can find. The recipe calls for the spiders to be alive and healthy when they're added to the bread, because dead spiders supposedly lose their healing power. The baker needs his regular bread dough, then begins pressing live spiders directly into the mixture. The spiders struggle and squirm as they're trapped in the sticky dough. Some try to crawl out, but the baker pushes them back in, making sure each loaf contains at least a dozen spiders. As the bread bakes, the spiders die from the heat, but their bodies remain embedded throughout the loaf. When the bread is finished, it looks almost normal from the outside, but every slice contains crushed spider parts, legs, bodies, webs, and whatever the spiders had recently eaten. Your family brings you the warm spider bread and encourages you to eat it while it's fresh. The spiders will hunt down your fever, they explain. They'll catch the evil humors in your stomach and destroy them. The bread tastes surprisingly normal at first. Spiders don't have a strong flavor when they're cooked and mixed with flour and yeast. But occasionally you bite down on something crunchy that definitely isn't a grain or seed. That's a spider leg. Or you encounter something that pops in your mouth like a tiny balloon. That's a spider's abdomen. Medieval physicians believed spiders were natural healers because they caught and killed other creatures. They reasoned that if spiders could trap flies and mosquitoes in webs, they could also trap diseases inside human bodies. It made perfect sense to people who thought illness was caused by tiny invisible demons. But spider bread wasn't just thrown together randomly. Medieval medical texts provided detailed recipes. Some call for specific types of spiders. Wolf spiders for stomach problems. House spiders for fever. Garden spiders for headaches. There were spider specialists who could identify the best medicinal spiders for different conditions. Some healers insisted the spiders needed to be prepared in particular ways. They might need to be blessed by a priest before being baked. Or they had to be caught during certain phases of the moon. Or they needed to be fed specific herbs before being turned into bread. The spider bread industry became sophisticated enough that some bakers specialized in medicinal breads. They kept spider farms in their basements, raising different types of spiders for different recipes. Customers could order custom spider breads designed for their specific illnesses. Children were regular spider bread consumers. Parents believed that feeding their kids spider-infused food would make them strong and resistant to disease. Many children grew up thinking that bread was supposed to contain insect parts, because that's all they'd ever eaten. Some regions developed signature spider bread variations. Italian bakers might add herbs and wine. German bakers preferred rye flour with spiders. French bakers created sweet spider pastries with honey and spices to mask the texture of the crushed arachnids. The most expensive spider breads used rare or exotic spiders. Imported spiders cost more than local ones, so wealthy families would pay premium prices for bread made with foreign arachnids, believing they were more medicinally powerful. Medieval physicians also prescribed spider bread as a preventive medicine. Healthy people would eat it regularly to avoid getting sick, especially during plague outbreaks. Entire families would consume daily spider bread as their primary defense against disease. The bread needed to be eaten quickly after baking, because medieval doctors believed that stale spider bread lost its healing properties. This meant bakers were constantly making fresh batches, and families were eating spider-filled bread multiple times per day during illness outbreaks. Some spider bread recipes included multiple types of insects. Bakers would add beetles, flies, crickets, and other bugs along with the spiders, creating super-powered insect bread that was supposed to cure multiple conditions at once. The strangest part was that some people actually claimed spider bread worked. Whether this was placebo effect, coincidental recovery, or just wishful thinking, there were medieval testimonials praising the healing power of arachnid-infused baked goods. So the next time you find a bug in your food and get disgusted, remember medieval families who deliberately ate bread filled with spiders and thought it was medicine. Modern food safety standards might seem strict, but at least your baker isn't intentionally adding live insects to your dinner rolls. Number 8. Trepanation, holes in the skull. Medieval medicine's answer to headaches, seizures, and mental illness was surprisingly direct. Drill a hole in the patient's skull and let the evil spirits escape. This procedure, called trepanation, was performed with primitive tools, no anesthesia, and absolutely no understanding of brain anatomy. Amazingly, some patients actually survived. You've been suffering from severe headaches and occasional seizures. In your medieval world, this clearly means that demons have taken up residence inside your skull and are causing chaos in your brain. The local surgeon has one solution. He's going to drill a hole in your head to let them out. The surgeon arrives with his toolkit, a collection of metal drills, saws, and scrapers that look more like torture devices than medical instruments. These tools are rusty, dirty, and have been used on countless other patients without ever being properly cleaned. The evil spirits in your head need an escape route, the surgeon explains matter-of-factly. Once we create an opening in your skull, the demons will flee and your suffering will end. There's no anesthesia available, no pain medication, no sterile operating room. You're going to be fully conscious while someone drills through your skull with medieval power tools operated by hand crank and elbow grease. The surgeon begins by shaving a patch of hair from the top of your head, revealing the skin over your skull. He marks a spot with charcoal, usually right in the center of your forehead or on top of your head, where he believes the demons are concentrated. Then he takes his drill, a metal tool with a sharp, spiraling tip, and begins boring into your skull. The sound is horrific, a grinding, crunching noise as metal cuts through bone. You can feel the vibration through your entire head as the drill slowly penetrates deeper and deeper. The pain is indescribable. It's not just the surface pain of having your scalp cut open, but the deep, bone-crushing agony of having your skull slowly penetrated by a metal drill. Every turn of the surgeon's hand sends waves of pain through your head and down your spine. Blood pours from the drill hole, mixing with bone dust to create a gory paste that covers your face and neck. The surgeon occasionally pauses to clear away the blood and bone fragments so he can see how deep he's drilling. Excellent, he says as the drill finally breaks through the inner layer of your skull. I can see the opening is complete. Now the evil spirits have a way to escape. Medieval surgeons believed they could actually see evil spirits leaving through the skull hole. They interpreted natural brain fluids, blood, and other normal bodily secretions as evidence that demons were being expelled from the patient head. But the surgery isn't over yet. The surgeon uses a small saw to enlarge the hole, creating an opening big enough for large demons to exit comfortably. He might cut a circular piece of skull bone completely free, removing it entirely to create a permanent window into your brain. The exposed brain tissue is visible through the hole, pulsing with your heartbeat. Medieval surgeons had no idea what the brain actually did, so they felt free to poke at it with dirty instruments to encourage any remaining spirits to leave. Some surgeons would insert herbs, holy water, or blessed oils directly into the brain through the skull hole, believing this would purify the area and prevent new demons from moving in. They would literally pour liquids onto your exposed brain while you were conscious and watching. The recovery process was brutal and usually fatal. With no understanding of infection, sterile technique, or proper wound care, most trepanation patients died within days from brain infections. The skull hole provided a perfect entry point for bacteria to invade the brain directly. But medieval physicians had explanations for when patients died after trepanation. If someone didn't survive the surgery, it meant the demons were too powerful and had fought back during their expulsion. If the patient lived but continued having symptoms, it meant some spirits had escaped but others were still hiding inside the skull. Children were not exempt from trepanation. Medieval surgeons would drill holes in kids' heads to treat everything from learning disabilities to behavioral problems. Parents genuinely believed they were helping their children by having their skulls opened to release evil spirits. Some patients received multiple trepanations. If the first hole didn't cure their symptoms, surgeons would drill additional holes, creating skulls that looked like they'd been attacked with a drill press. Some medieval skeletons show evidence of 3 or 4 separate trepanation holes. The most horrifying aspect was that trepanation was considered a routine procedure. Medieval medical texts provided detailed instructions for skull drilling, including diagrams showing the best locations to bore holes for different types of mental illness. Amazingly, some trepanation patients did survive. Archaeological evidence shows healed trepanation holes, meaning people lived long enough after the surgery for their skulls to grow new bone around the opening. These survivors were considered miraculous proof that the procedure worked. So the next time you complain about getting a headache and reaching for aspirin, remember medieval people who thought the cure for brain pain was having their skulls drilled open with rusty tools. Modern neurology might be complicated, but at least your doctor isn't trying to treat your migraine by boring holes in your head. Number 9. Herbs with deadly side effects. Medieval herbalists had access to some genuinely powerful plants. The problem was that many of these healing herbs were actually deadly poisons that could kill patients faster than their original illness. Plants like mandrake, henbane, and belladonna were prescribed regularly, often with fatal results. You're suffering from chronic pain that makes it impossible to sleep or function normally. The village herbalist has a solution, a special tea made from mandrake root, one of the most powerful pain-relieving plants known to medieval medicine. What she doesn't tell you is that mandrake is also one of the most toxic plants in Europe. The herbalist shows you the mandrake root, which looks disturbingly like a tiny human figure with arms and legs. Medieval people believed this resemblance meant the plant contained human-like spirits that could heal human ailments. The root screamed when pulled from the ground, according to legend, and that scream could kill anyone who heard it. This will eliminate your pain completely, the herbalist promises, grinding the mandrake root into powder. But you must be very careful with the dose. Too little won't work. Too much will send you to meet your maker. She mixes the mandrake powder with hot water, creating a bitter, brownish tea that smells like earth and decay. The taste is overwhelmingly bitter, with a chemical aftertaste that makes your mouth go numb almost immediately. Within minutes of drinking the mandrake tea, you feel the effects. Your pain does diminish, but it's replaced by something much worse. Your heart starts racing, then slowing down unpredictably. Your vision becomes blurry, and you start seeing things that aren't there. Hallucinations begin, shadows moving in the corners of your eyes, voices calling your name from empty rooms. The herbalist watches your reaction with concern. The spirits in the mandrake are fighting the spirits causing your pain, she explains. This is normal. The visions mean the medicine is working, but the hallucinations get worse. You see dead relatives beckoning to you from dark corners. The walls of your room seem to breathe and pulse like living things. Colors become impossibly bright and overwhelming. You can't tell what's real and what's created by the mandrake poisoning your brain. Your mouth becomes extremely dry, making it difficult to speak or swallow. Your pupils dilate so much that normal light becomes painful. Your hands shake uncontrollably, and you feel like your skin is crawling with invisible insects. Mandrake wasn't the only deadly herb in the medieval medicine cabinet. Henbane was prescribed for tooth pain and insomnia, but it caused violent delirium and often death. Patients would hallucinate for days, attacking family members they thought were demons or monsters. Belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, was used to treat everything from headaches to menstrual cramps. Medieval women would use tiny amounts of belladonna to dilate their pupils, believing it made them more attractive. Larger medicinal doses caused fever, convulsions, and cardiac arrest. Foxglove was prescribed for heart problems, and it actually does affect the heart. Unfortunately, it affects the heart by causing irregular rhythms that can kill you. Medieval patients taking foxglove for weak hearts often died from heart attacks caused by the very herb that was supposed to help them. The dosing of these herbal poisons was completely guesswork. Medieval herbalists had no understanding of active compounds, proper measurements, or individual tolerance levels. They prescribed the same amount of deadly nightshade to a small child and a large adult, often with predictable results. Some herbs were so dangerous that even medieval physicians recognized their toxicity, but they prescribed them anyway because they were the only treatments available. Physicians would warn patients that the medicine might kill them, but encourage them to try it because the alternative was certain death from their illness. Medieval medical gardens were basically poison farms. Monasteries and healing centers grew rows of toxic plants that could kill with a single leaf. Monks and herbalists had to be extremely careful when harvesting these plants, because even touching some of them could cause skin reactions or poisoning through absorption. Children were particularly vulnerable to herbal poisoning. Parents would give kids medicine made from plants that could kill adult horses, not realizing that children needed much smaller doses. Many medieval children died from herbal treatments that their parents thought were gentle, natural remedies. The preparation of herbal medicines was often contaminated with additional toxins. Herbalists would grind plants on the same surfaces used for preparing other medicines, cross-contaminating batches with multiple poisons. A patient seeking treatment for insomnia might receive tea contaminated with cardiac toxins from the previous batch. Some regions developed reputations for particularly dangerous herbal practices. Certain areas had wise women who were known for their powerful plant medicines, but also for their high patient death rates. People would travel long distances to see these herbalists, often dying from the journey or the treatment. The most ironic aspect was that some of these deadly herbs actually did work for their intended purposes, but the therapeutic dose was so close to the lethal dose that successful treatment was largely a matter of luck. Medieval patients were essentially playing Russian roulette with every herbal remedy. Medieval herbalists kept detailed records of which plants worked for which conditions, but they rarely connected patient deaths to the medicines they prescribed. When someone died after taking belladonna for headaches, it was attributed to God's will or evil spirits, not to plant poisoning. So the next time you're skeptical of pharmaceutical side effects and think natural is always better, remember medieval patients who died from gentle herbal remedies that were actually lethal poisons. Modern medicine might have synthetic compounds, but at least your doctor isn't prescribing deadly nightshade for your headaches. Number 10. Blood as a healing tonic. Medieval medicine's obsession with blood reached its peak with the practice of drinking fresh human blood as medicine. Physicians believed that consuming blood from healthy young people could transfer their vitality and cure weakness, anemia, and aging. The fresher the blood, the more powerful it was supposed to be, leading to some truly horrific medical practices. You're an elderly medieval noble suffering from what modern medicine would recognize as natural aging, but medieval physicians diagnose as blood weakness. Your own blood has grown thin and tired, they explain, and the only cure is to replace it with fresh, vital blood from a younger person. The physician arranges for a healthy young peasant to provide the blood. The peasant, desperate for money, agrees to the procedure without understanding what it involves. This isn't just a small blood donation. Medieval doctors believed therapeutic blood drinking required large quantities, often enough to weaken or kill the donor. The blood extraction takes place in your chamber. The young donor is placed on a table while the physician opens a vein in his arm, letting blood flow directly into a ceramic cup. The blood is warm, thick, and dark red as it pours from the donor's body. Drink it immediately while it's still warm, the physician instructs. Cold blood loses its life force and healing properties. You lift the cup of fresh human blood to your lips. The smell hits you first, metallic, salty, with an organic warmth that makes your stomach turn. The taste is indescribable. Imagine licking copper pennies mixed with raw meat and salt water. It's thick, coating your mouth and teeth with a film that makes everything taste like iron. Medieval physicians believed that blood contained the essence of life itself. Young, healthy blood was thought to be especially powerful because it came from vigorous bodies. The blood of virgins was considered premium medicine, commanding higher prices than regular blood. But the blood drinking doesn't stop with one cup. The physician encourages you to consume as much as possible while it's fresh. Some patients drank pints of blood in a single session, essentially consuming another person's life force in liquid form. The donor, meanwhile, is growing pale and weak as his blood is drained into your medicine cups. Medieval physicians had no understanding of safe blood loss limits. They would continue extracting blood until the donor fainted or begged them to stop. Some blood medicine required specific preparation. Executioner's blood was considered especially potent because it came from people who had died violently, which supposedly concentrated their life energy. Families would rush to execution sites with cups, collecting fresh blood from beheaded criminals to use as medicine. The blood of soldiers killed in battle was another premium medicine. Medieval physicians believed that warriors who died fighting had especially strong blood that could cure cowardice and weakness. Battlefield scavengers would collect blood from fresh corpses to sell to medical practitioners. Children weren't spared from blood drinking treatments. Parents would force sick kids to drink blood from healthy children, believing it would cure everything from weakness to learning disabilities. Many children were traumatized by being forced to consume human blood while being told it was medicine. Some physicians mixed human blood with other ingredients to make it more palatable. Blood wine was popular among wealthy patients who could afford to mask the taste with expensive alcohol. Blood honey combined fresh blood with sweet honey to create a syrup that was supposedly easier to swallow. The most horrific variation was drinking blood directly from living donors. Some physicians believed that blood transferred through a tube directly from donor to patient was more powerful than blood that had been sitting in a cup. Patients would drink blood straight from another person's veins through reed tubes or metal pipes. Medieval medical texts provided detailed instructions for blood medicine preparation. They specified optimal donor characteristics, proper collection techniques, and storage methods for keeping blood fresh as long as possible. These books were written by learned physicians who genuinely believed they were practicing advanced medicine. The blood medicine trade created a market for human blood that operated like any other commodity. Healthy young people could sell their blood to wealthy patients, often repeatedly until their health was permanently damaged. Some donors died from repeated blood loss, but this was considered an acceptable risk for the medical benefits. Blood drinking was often combined with other medieval treatments. Patients might consume fresh blood while simultaneously being bled themselves, creating a bizarre medical ritual where they lost their own bad blood while gaining someone else's good blood. The practice was so accepted that medieval cookbooks included recipes for blood-based medicines. They provided instructions for mixing blood with herbs, spices, and other ingredients to create therapeutic drinks that were supposed to cure specific ailments. Some regions specialized in particular types of blood medicine. Italian blood was considered superior for treating melancholy. French blood was thought to cure skin problems. German blood was prescribed for digestive issues. People would travel long distances to obtain blood from specific regions. So the next time you're squeamish about giving blood for medical tests and think medieval medicine was more natural, remember patients who thought drinking fresh human blood was the ultimate health treatment. Modern medicine might involve needles and lab work, but at least your doctor isn't trying to cure your fatigue by having you consume someone else's life force. And there you have it. 10 medieval medical treatments that make modern medicine look like a miracle of science and compassion. From blood-sucking leeches to skull drilling, from urine cocktails to molten gold, medieval physicians had an impressive talent for making sick people sicker. The next time you complain about waiting at the doctor's office, remember medieval patients who had dead mice tied to their teeth and thought it was cutting-edge healthcare. When you grumble about the taste of cough syrup, think about people who drank fresh human blood and called it medicine. Medieval medicine teaches us that good intentions aren't enough. It shows us what happens when treatments are based on superstition instead of science, when tradition matters more than evidence, and when doctors think they know everything while actually knowing nothing. So be grateful for modern medicine with all its complexity and side effects. At least your physician isn't trying to cure your headache by drilling holes in your skull or treating your cold with powdered human bones. We've come a long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with a prayer attached. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medieval medical horrors. If you enjoyed this descent into historical insanity, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which treatment horrified you the most. And remember, the next time someone tells you that old-fashioned remedies are always better, you can remind them that old-fashioned medicine used to involve drinking molten gold and eating spider bread. But here's what makes this journey through medieval medical horror truly fascinating. These weren't the practices of ignorant people. These were the treatments prescribed by the most educated physicians of their time. Medieval doctors weren't stupid or cruel. They were working with the best knowledge they had, trying desperately to help their patients in a world where death was everywhere and answers were nowhere. Think about it. Every single one of these treatments made logical sense within the medieval worldview. If you believe that illness comes from evil spirits, then drilling holes in skulls to let them escape seems reasonable. If you think disease is caused by bad blood, then removing that blood with leeches becomes obvious treatment. If you believe that cures, then using dead mice to draw pain from teeth follows perfectly logical reasoning. Medieval physicians were highly trained scholars who studied for years at prestigious universities. They read ancient texts by Galen and Hippocrates. They learned complex theories about the four humors, the balance of hot and cold, wet and dry. They memorized detailed charts connecting planetary movements to human health. These doctors were the intellectual elite of their society. And yet, they were completely, catastrophically wrong about almost everything. This should humble us. It should make us wonder, were we absolutely certain about today that future generations will look back on with horror? What medical treatments that we consider routine and beneficial will seem barbaric to doctors in the year 2500? Medieval physicians had the same confidence in their treatments that modern doctors have in theirs. They saw patients improve after bloodletting and attributed it to their skill, never considering that the patients might have recovered despite the treatment, not because of it. They witnessed the placebo effect and mistook it for medical proof. But here's the most important lesson from medieval medicine: progress is possible, but it's not inevitable. The gap between medieval and modern medicine didn't happen overnight. It took centuries of gradual understanding, countless failures, and the willingness to admit when established practices were wrong. Medieval medicine reminds us that expertise without evidence is just educated guessing. Authority without accountability leads to suffering. And tradition without questioning perpetuates harmful practices for generations. The patients we've talked about tonight weren't statistics or historical curiosities. They were real people with real pain, real fear, and real hope that their doctors could help them. They trusted medical authorities who prescribed urine cocktails and molten gold with absolute confidence. They suffered through treatments that made their conditions worse while being told these treatments were healing them. Their stories should make us better patients and better people. When we hear medical advice today, we should ask for evidence. When treatments don't make sense, we should ask questions. When authorities claim to know everything, we should remember medieval physicians who were certain that drilling holes in skulls was good medicine. Medieval medicine also shows us the power of the human spirit. Despite enduring treatments that were essentially torture, people kept seeking help. They kept hoping. They kept believing that tomorrow might bring relief from their suffering. Even when medicine failed them repeatedly, they didn't give up on the possibility of healing. And slowly, gradually, medicine did improve. Not because of dramatic breakthroughs, but because people started questioning established practices. They began observing results more carefully. They started admitting when treatments didn't work. They developed better ways to test whether medicines actually helped or harmed patients. The journey from leeches to antibiotics, from skull drilling to brain surgery, from urine therapy to modern pharmaceuticals, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It shows that we can overcome ignorance, superstition, and harmful traditions when we commit to evidence-based thinking and honest self-reflection. But we're not done yet. Medical science continues evolving. Treatments we use today will seem primitive to future doctors. Diseases that kill us now will be easily preventable in decades to come. The story of human medicine is still being written, and we're all part of that story. Medieval patients who drank molten gold and ate spider bread were participating in humanity's long, messy, often tragic search for healing. Their suffering wasn't meaningless if it helps us understand how far we've come and how much further we can go. So tonight, when you take your modern medicine, use your indoor plumbing, or visit your doctor who washes their hands and understands germ theory, remember the medieval patients who endured unimaginable treatments in hope of feeling better. Their pain contributed to our progress. Their suffering led to our understanding. And maybe, just maybe, our medical struggles today will contribute to treatments that future generations can't even imagine. The quest for healing continues, and we're all part of that ancient, ongoing human story. Sleep well, knowing that if you get sick tomorrow, your doctor won't prescribe leeches, molten metal, or powdered human skulls. We've come an incredibly long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with good intentions. And that's something worth celebrating. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medical history's darkest chapters. Hit that like button if you're grateful for modern medicine, subscribe if you want more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments which medieval treatment made you appreciate your local pharmacy the most. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember that sometimes the best way to appreciate the present is to understand just how brutal the past really was. Sweet dreams, and try not to think about leeches. And slowly, gradually, medicine did improve. Not because of dramatic breakthroughs, but because people started questioning established practices. They began observing results more carefully. They started admitting when treatments didn't work. They developed better ways to test whether medicines actually helped or harmed patients. The journey from leeches to antibiotics, from skull drilling to brain surgery, from urine therapy to modern pharmaceuticals, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It shows that we can overcome ignorance, superstition, and harmful traditions when we commit to evidence-based thinking and honest self-reflection. But we're not done yet. Medical science continues evolving. Treatments we use today will seem primitive to future doctors. Diseases that kill us now will be easily preventable in decades to come. The story of human medicine is still being written, and we're all part of that story. Medieval patients who drank molten gold and ate spider bread were participating in humanity's long, messy, often tragic search for healing. Their suffering wasn't meaningless if it helps us understand how far we've come and how much further we can go. So tonight, when you take your modern medicine, use your indoor plumbing, or visit your doctor who washes their hands and understands germ theory, remember the medieval patients who endured unimaginable treatments in hope of feeling better. Their pain contributed to our progress. Their suffering led to our understanding. And maybe, just maybe, our medical struggles today will contribute to treatments that future generations can't even imagine. The quest for healing continues, and we're all part of that ancient, ongoing human story. Sleep well, knowing that if you get sick tomorrow, your doctor won't prescribe leeches, molten metal, or powdered human skulls. We've come an incredibly long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with good intentions. And that's something worth celebrating. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medical history's darkest chapters. Hit that like button if you're grateful for modern medicine, subscribe if you want more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments which medieval treatment made you appreciate your local pharmacy the most. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember that sometimes the best way to appreciate the present is to understand just how brutal the past really was. Sweet dreams, and try not to think about leeches. And slowly, gradually, medicine did improve. Not because of dramatic breakthroughs, but because people started questioning established practices. They began observing results more carefully. They started admitting when treatments didn't work. They developed better ways to test whether medicines actually helped or harmed patients. The journey from leeches to antibiotics, from skull drilling to brain surgery, from urine therapy to modern pharmaceuticals, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It shows that we can overcome ignorance, superstition, and harmful traditions when we commit to evidence-based thinking and honest self-reflection. But we're not done yet. Medical science continues evolving. Treatments we use today will seem primitive to future doctors. Diseases that kill us now will be easily preventable in decades to come. The story of human medicine is still being written, and we're all part of that story. Medieval patients who drank molten gold and ate spider bread were participating in humanity's long, messy, often tragic search for healing. Their suffering wasn't meaningless if it helps us understand how far we've come and how much further we can go. So tonight, when you take your modern medicine, use your indoor plumbing, or visit your doctor who washes their hands and understands germ theory, remember the medieval patients who endured unimaginable treatments in hope of feeling better. Their pain contributed to our progress. Their suffering led to our understanding. And maybe, just maybe, our medical struggles today will contribute to treatments that future generations can't even imagine. The quest for healing continues, and we're all part of that ancient, ongoing human story. Sleep well, knowing that if you get sick tomorrow, your doctor won't prescribe leeches, molten metal, or powdered human skulls. We've come an incredibly long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with good intentions. And that's something worth celebrating. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medical history's darkest chapters. Hit that like button if you're grateful for modern medicine, subscribe if you want more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments which medieval treatment made you appreciate your local pharmacy the most. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember that sometimes the best way to appreciate the present is to understand just how brutal the past really was. Sweet dreams, and try not to think about leeches. And slowly, gradually, medicine did improve. Not because of dramatic breakthroughs, but because people started questioning established practices. They began observing results more carefully. They started admitting when treatments didn't work. They developed better ways to test whether medicines actually helped or harmed patients. The journey from leeches to antibiotics, from skull drilling to brain surgery, from urine therapy to modern pharmaceuticals, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It shows that we can overcome ignorance, superstition, and harmful traditions when we commit to evidence-based thinking and honest self-reflection. But we're not done yet. Medical science continues evolving. Treatments we use today will seem primitive to future doctors. Diseases that kill us now will be easily preventable in decades to come. The story of human medicine is still being written, and we're all part of that story. Medieval patients who drank molten gold and ate spider bread were participating in humanity's long, messy, often tragic search for healing. Their suffering wasn't meaningless if it helps us understand how far we've come and how much further we can go. So tonight, when you take your modern medicine, use your indoor plumbing, or visit your doctor who washes their hands and understands germ theory, remember the medieval patients who endured unimaginable treatments in hope of feeling better. Their pain contributed to our progress. Their suffering led to our understanding. And maybe, just maybe, our medical struggles today will contribute to treatments that future generations can't even imagine. The quest for healing continues, and we're all part of that ancient, ongoing human story. Sleep well, knowing that if you get sick tomorrow, your doctor won't prescribe leeches, molten metal, or powdered human skulls. We've come an incredibly long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with good intentions. And that's something worth celebrating. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medical history's darkest chapters. Hit that like button if you're grateful for modern medicine, subscribe if you want more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments which medieval treatment made you appreciate your local pharmacy the most. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember that sometimes the best way to appreciate the present is to understand just how brutal the past really was. Sweet dreams, and try not to think about leeches. And slowly, gradually, medicine did improve. Not because of dramatic breakthroughs, but because people started questioning established practices. They began observing results more carefully. They started admitting when treatments didn't work. They developed better ways to test whether medicines actually helped or harmed patients. The journey from leeches to antibiotics, from skull drilling to brain surgery, from urine therapy to modern pharmaceuticals, represents one of humanity's greatest achievements. It shows that we can overcome ignorance, superstition, and harmful traditions when we commit to evidence-based thinking and honest self-reflection. But we're not done yet. Medical science continues evolving. Treatments we use today will seem primitive to future doctors. Diseases that kill us now will be easily preventable in decades to come. The story of human medicine is still being written, and we're all part of that story. Medieval patients who drank molten gold and ate spider bread were participating in humanity's long, messy, often tragic search for healing. Their suffering wasn't meaningless if it helps us understand how far we've come and how much further we can go. So tonight, when you take your modern medicine, use your indoor plumbing, or visit your doctor who washes their hands and understands germ theory, remember the medieval patients who endured unimaginable treatments in hope of feeling better. Their pain contributed to our progress. Their suffering led to our understanding. And maybe, just maybe, our medical struggles today will contribute to treatments that future generations can't even imagine. The quest for healing continues, and we're all part of that ancient, ongoing human story. Sleep well, knowing that if you get sick tomorrow, your doctor won't prescribe leeches, molten metal, or powdered human skulls. We've come an incredibly long way from the days when medicine was basically organized torture with good intentions. And that's something worth celebrating. Thanks for joining me on this journey through medical history's darkest chapters. Hit that like button if you're grateful for modern medicine, subscribe if you want more historical deep dives, And let me know in the comments which medieval treatment made you appreciate your local pharmacy the most. Until next time, stay healthy, stay curious, and remember that sometimes the best way to appreciate the present is to understand just how brutal the past really was. Sweet dreams, and try not to think about leeches.